on. It's the darkness isn't that bad.
Greetings and welcome to DreamWorks, a DreamWorks podcast starring a disgruntled ex-journalist now writing having written Scott Pilgrim fan fiction at this point, and a spineless, asthmatic 29-year-old curmudgeon sweeping movie theaters for a living.
He'll
and
be
today
30 in like a couple months.
And today we also have a very special guest, a returning guest, Alita. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, glad to be here.
Today we're talking about a movie that came out this year in February and no one saw it because Netflix doesn't like to promote animated content, and it drives me nuts. It is Orion and the Dark, written by Charlie Kaufman, which we'll get into. That was the big selling point for me back when they announced it. Movie kind of just came and went. I've not heard anyone talk about it anywhere. Mm-hmm. And Netflix has a history of doing this with other things. They didn't really push The Sea Beast last year, a couple years ago, until it got nominated for an Oscar.
Nimona.
They didn't really push Nimona until it found an audience pretty quickly, though. And then
I can see why.
They didn't push My Father's Dragon.
I can see why.
Yeah. Like, it's just they get this animated content and then they don't
didn't
promote
really
it
push
as
Klaus
much.
either, did they?
Didn't really. It kind of caught on its own. The House is a stop motion one that is good. It just they didn't promote it. Like, they have a lot of content.
No, they'd rather
that
promote
they bring
the
in.
Kissing Booth and the Kissing Booth 2
and 3.
Yeah,
I think there might be even 4 for all I know.
Unfortunately, Netflix is not the only streaming service that kind of shelves animated stuff. Like, even Disney has been known to do that with their own animated movies.
Yeah, and
I mean, that's why Luca got done dirty the way it did. That didn't go to theaters, did it?
It was supposed to. They yanked
Even
it.
Turning Red.
That was the same thing. It was going to theater and they got yanked.
Yeah, that's not entirely on Disney though.
Nah, it is.
It was. Come on, it was 2020 and 2021.
2021, 2022.
Was it really?
Because
Soul is time.
Soul went straight to streaming because that was late 2020 pandemic. Luca was the summer. Other movies were coming out. The first big movie that came out post first couple waves of COVID.
Hedgehog, wasn't it?
That was before COVID. That was like a month before.
What is time?
Yep. It was Godzilla vs. Kong. It was like the first movie that kind of made something, and then a lot of people like to say
Godzilla X Kong.
The New Empire or whatever the subtitles.
Like that.
The point being, like, when Luca slated to come out on my birthday, that's a couple months after Godzilla vs. Kong kind of broke through to be that first like money making movie since things were shut down. So like things were starting to roll again, and I think when was that? And by the end of the year, I think Raya and the Last Dragon was before Luca came out. And then Encanto later in the fall, like
because Encanto did come out in theaters, but then it didn't really get big until it hit streaming.
The DreamWorks one that I thoroughly remember, DreamWorks, not Disney, is the Croods 2. That's the one that I thoroughly. That and Trolls World Tour were the two that I thoroughly remember from the COVID era.
It's because Trolls World Tour is supposed to be the first movie of like a Universal deal with AMC theaters. Something like that, and then it didn't come out because everything shut down. And then Croods came out like right at the tail end of 2020 and did go to theaters. I don't think it did very well because of that.
It came out in like June.
No, that was a late year release.
When did Spirit Untamed come out?
That was June.
Okay,
that's right, because they moved Boss Baby to July, so it was back-to-back months for DreamWorks.
I know it's weird watching Boss Baby in July and it's a Christmas
movie.
Which,
this whole tangent does bring us to that Orion in the Dark came out and no one has really talked about it. I was interested when they announced it like a year or two ago, but then just didn't hear anything, and then it's out and it's a decent movie. Mm-hmm. It kind of fits that mold of this is a mainstream animated children's movie. Just a couple differences, some Kaufmanisms that I've noticed from being familiar with his work, but. Yeah, it's I don't know how much there is to say about it, but we will be going into it. Since Alita's our guest, Alita, what are I know you came with your notebook again, like usually. What are some of your thoughts.
Well, I want to share I didn't know much about Charlie Kaufman going into this, but I did watch like a YouTube video about it by a YouTuber by the name of The Cinema Cartography. And in that video, they shared a quote from Charlie Kaufman, which I think applies very well to this movie. It says, "I think that's what art should offer, an opportunity to recognize our common humanity and vulnerability. So rather than pretending I'm an expert, I'm just telling you I don't know anything." I feel like there's moments in this movie that I really feel like you feel that humanity and the vulnerability, not only in all the anxieties and the fears, but even in like those cuts that I'm sure we'll talk about. The fact that we know that it's a story being told over many years, but it's a fact of like we know that this is a story, and we know that it's kind of a true story that we can learn from as well.
That some of us at this table can very relate to.
Yeah. Well, we let the cat out of the bag right away.
Yeah, I thought this should be called Jared in the Dark.
Yeah, or The Life and Times of One Named Jared.
I will say, even I, like,
just
in the
Jared
first few
in
minutes,
the dark.
What were you saying?
even I in the first few minutes, I'm like, wow, this is really calling me out right now with my social anxiety.
Yep.
What was the moment you said that you felt it when he walks past the girl on the tree?
Well, it's what is her name again? Did you write down what is the girl that he's trying to talk to?
I have the internet in front
I
of
know,
me.
I do too. I just can't remember.
I didn't write down her name, no.
Is it Lisa?
I don't know. I just watched.
We just watched it.
Like
we can't
yesterday.
remember.
Because a lot of times she's mentioned as the mom or her.
I don't remember who Lisa. No, it's Sally. That's it.
I thought it was
That's maybe why my brain was drawing comparisons to Nightmare Before Christmas. Wow.
I think it's Sally. Because there's a credited Sally and an adult Sally.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, and we know that the daughter's name is Hypatia.
Hypatia. That's a pretty name.
Yeah, I'm just making sure, but there's that.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yep, it's Sally. So
Sally.
he's talking about his paranoia and how he's afraid of like everything, and he's got like this existential dread. I'm like, oh, there's Kaufman. And then it's like, oh, and I'm scared of this and this and this. I'm like, okay, it's just starting to hit close to home. Mm-hmm. And then he's like walking straight to Sally, sitting down just by herself, enjoying lunch, and he's walking. And then like last second, turns and walks the other way. It's a trope in movies, but the way it was like presented and the way he's saying it in his head, he's like, no, stupid, dumb idea. And he just goes and sits by himself. I go, oh, that.
You say that like that's any significant amount of time into the movie. It's literally 3 minutes into
I
the
know.
movie.
Yeah.
It's just
That
right away.
first
Like the
40
opening.
minutes must have just felt like a lifetime to you.
Oh, I was just sitting there going, most movies don't have someone that I feel acts like me. This was me. Great.
Well.
So that was a good, and it's a good start. It was just like, oh boy, are we in for a ride?
And I feel like it's
It was
interesting.
somewhat of a ride.
It's because a lot of times you want the main character to be somewhat like you want the people that you like that you're showing it to relate to them, right? You want them to be relatable, and a lot of times, unfortunately, that ends up with the main character being very bland and nothing at all. But I think with Orion, you see that he has this personality, but at the same time, even though he lists all of his fears, we don't go into the backstory of them, so there could be any reason why he could be afraid of any of those things, which kind of makes it relatable to us. Because we might not have all of those fears, but we probably all have some of those fears. And because they don't go into why he has those fears, or at least a lot of them, they can be very relatable to us and have our own reasons for being afraid of those things.
Does going into at least one of those fears, why he's afraid, would that have made a stronger narrative, you think? Because I know it's focusing on many things.
I think it might have been trying to do too many things at once if they went too much into one of the fears. Because I think, I don't know, I think for what it is, especially for what the movie is, trying to go too much into one thing might have been trying to do too many things at once.
Because he's got all these fears, and then it's like he's scared of the dark, so that makes dark come in the form of an entity, and try to like make him appreciate the dark, and it like becomes a Pixar-esque thing of how does this world work, and we've turned these things into like characters with jobs. And I was like, okay, we're going the Pixar. Okay, let's see how they do it. And as they're doing it, I was like, okay, I'm still on board. The middle of the movie is what was losing me a little bit. And I think it's because it's like explaining. It's like, okay, are we going to spend the rest like explaining how this works and something good? But then they kind of go further.
Yeah.
Are you telling me you weren't locked in when you saw Sleep suffocate?
That was funny. the hitting the baby with the hammer, or going to. Just, like, there's fun stuff in there. I just remember thinking, like, okay, we're starting to do this thing. That's fine. And then it goes even further, because, like, we've talked about off camera, Jake, the framing device comes in real late. And that kind of throws you. Yeah. Because now it's like, oh, now we have another thing we're focusing on.
I think...
You hear the narrating from Colin Hanks, you're like, what's going on?
Yeah. I think that I would say that I connect with this film and, like, its spirit, the spirit of it, but, like,
the entity of it.
But, like, the structure of it and, like, how it presents itself is just kind of to me. And that might be me having not had much familiarity with, let me say it right, because there has been a lot of mix-up of this name. Charlie Kaufman.
Charlie Kaufman.
Not Andy Kaufman. Very different people.
Yes. And I'll get back on Charlie later.
So, like, it's one of those things where, like, you zoom out to that area where it's the dad telling Hypatia the story, and it's like, okay, I kind of feel like that for me, that took me out of the movie. Like, quite significantly, and then it switches rather abruptly when it switches to her after having escaped with the little elf guy. Spoilers, by the way.
Yeah, of course, spoilers. We're going to be talking about spoilers for Orion in the Dark, if you've heard of it. And then by the third act, it becomes a thing where, like, Dark disappears because, you know...
I thought they could have done without that.
It's another thing of, like, it's pushing it further into a different narrative, and it works in the end. I think because the internal problem with Orion is he's scared of everything. Yeah. So the usual setup, again, this is Kaufman, so he's not going to do the usual thing, but you have an internal issue that relates to an external problem somehow. And what should happen is by the end of the story, both are resolved through dealing with one to get to the other and vice versa. That's just normal story setup for stuff like this. And that's why I said going into one of his fears might have been better to, like, okay, why is he scared of the dark? Well, the dark is scary for a lot of kids. What if there's an underlying reason that doesn't have to be complex, that kids can understand? And when he deals with that, because, like, they go into the dream and he sees the bully, it's like, even if that has something to do with it, if you somehow make that one more connection, then everything makes sense. It's like, okay, these compounded from this one fear, which came from this. But because there's so much going on, we don't really do that. And again, it's the decision to not focus on that. But I do think that would have made it stronger. Here we are, you know, not connected to the movie industry in the slightest, telling them how they should make their movies. But
well, I think it just speaks to how we would have connected to it more ourselves.
Yeah. And that's all.
I didn't even think about that, but, like, what you're saying makes sense. I think it works. I think it could work. I think it works now as it is, but I think it could also work that way too. It just works in a different way for me.
Yeah, and I think that's where the emotional connection for me is the relatability of the protagonist. But there was a story connection that was lacking for me because we didn't have that connection in there between, like, okay, why does this matter as much? Because at a certain point, his fears don't mean anything to the story.
That's true.
It becomes more about getting Dark back because there's a global crisis. And you understand, it's a story that he's telling his daughter in the future, or if that's the present, however it's lined. So I can understand that.
And then it goes just absolutely crazy when Hypatia enters not even when she enters the story, just.
And that's when it's the most fun too.
I think in what I wrote on Letterboxd, I think I used the phrase becomes boss baby-ish. And I don't think that's incorrect, but I also don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing.
It's Kaufman playing with the narrative. He's like, okay, let's insert her because we've established this is a story. We're not establishing this actually happened for sure because the main character as an adult, has literally, while telling a story, said it's a story, and his daughters called it out, like, so we can do anything we want. And they even say, like, well, how did you get there? Well, I don't know. It's like, okay, I'm on board. And, like, it becomes, like, this, like, adventure more than it was. It's like, okay, I'm in. I'm enjoying how just wonky this is getting.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like, I don't even necessarily have a problem with how it's set up like that. It was just, I think, telling us in, like, the middle of it that it was a story was
weird.
Yeah.
It's a little jarring.
It is.
But, you know, I've talked about it many times on this podcast. I love stories about characters that break out of this mold that they put themselves into. To that end, I think this would have connected with me more if, like, the Journal of Fears was more of a character. Like, if his fears were like those little doodles just all over the world, and as we progress through the story,
he's overcoming his fears.
Yes.
There's another good idea.
Yeah. I don't think that Day needed to be a piece of this either.
No. Yeah, there's not really
not really an antagonist.
Yeah. And that's what I appreciated, because I was like, are they going to set up Day to be like an antagonist and it becomes a struggle between the two? But no, Day's just doing his job. And when he sees Dark come back, he's happy. Like, it's like, okay, I like that. I like we didn't go, there's no twist villain. There's no, like, bad guy that gets inserted. It's just pretty straightforward in that regard. I liked that.
Yeah.
The entities explaining, like, what they all do is fun, but doesn't do a ton for the story other than it makes Dark feel sad and have an existential crisis.
I guess.
That's really all they're there to do. Because, again, like, he's showing him how cool the Dark can be and showing him, I guess, but it's also like that doesn't mean as much because he gets over his fear halfway through the movie.
Yeah, but I mean, he also doesn't I think the point is also that he doesn't entirely get over it, because I think they also mentioned that later on, that, like, even when Hypatia and Orion start to go through the park, it gets dark. He says, oh no, I was scared too. And I think that's the point, is that he was still scared. I kind of liked that they kind of left the fact that he was still scared in there, because I think that's a good message, because a lot of times if they just put in that he overcame all of these fears, then people who still feel, especially kids who still feel scared, feel like, well, why am I not getting over these fears? Whereas making Orion and them still, like, fear, and, like, at the end, you know, having to still do things even though he's afraid is a great message for anybody, kid or not, or older kid, I guess you could say.
I will say I'm not afraid of the dark, and I would not walk through that park.
I was going to say that being said, walking through a dark park in, what was it, New York
New York,
City or something
like
that?
that
is terrifying in
Yeah,
itself.
I mean, that's common sense, and I think to a certain extent, fear that's still connected to fear, and in a sense, fear can be a good thing, because then
fear is the mind killer.
Okay.
She doesn't know what that is.
I know. It's Dune.
Thanks, Jared.
That's a Dune reference.
That's not even the most current part of Dune.
They say it in the second movie.
Where?
When she's drinking, right before she drinks the water of life.
Oh.
Jessica. Yeah, she says it to herself.
Huh.
See?
I didn't even hear it.
Yeah. Sorry, that's Dune talk. Sorry. Just, you said fear. I go, fear is the mind killer.
The description on this on Letterboxd plays a funny little play on words. Hello, darkness, my new friend. It made me laugh.
I'm glad it made you laugh.
Thank you. What is this rated?
Oh yeah, rated PG. It's been a while. It's been a long time.
That's
when
explicitly why I said that.
Gotcha. I forgot. It's been a long time. What was our last one? Was it Ruby Gilman?
Yeah.
Was it Ruby Gilman? No, it was Trolls. It was Trolls at the end of the year.
Wasn't even that just earlier this year?
No. That was last year. That was like November.
Feels like yesterday.
It does.
Can't get that stupid movie out of my mind.
I keep forgetting.
Your what?
I keep forgetting Trolls band
Your
together.
what?
I meant to
out
say.
Out of your mouth?
Yes.
Well, you know what they say, making mounds into molehills.
Anyways, I would like to talk about the art style for this movie, because I appreciate that it's a little bit unique in the art style. That it's like there's some, obviously it's like computer generated, so it's like still like that 3D, but then you have I feel like there's like points where it looks almost like a colored pencil or like crayon a little bit in some of the details, and then some of the backgrounds look like paintings. It's really pretty.
They've been doing that a lot lately.
I like the combination. I will say it's nice to see like a difference in
There
things.
were a lot of moments where I was like, is this part stop motion animated? Or is it at least at a frame rate where it looks like it? Because
it does almost
a lot
have
of the
that
times
stop
when the
motion
kids were on the
look to it.
playground, that's when I saw her, when there was like a lot of motion. Yeah, I like the art style. Well, like I said, I'd like the journal to be more of a character, and that's more of a meshing of. I think in a post, and I hate to do this because it makes Dickie correct.
Say in a post Peanuts movie world, we're gonna go to the one that started it in the mainstream.
Okay.
In a post Peanuts
Honestly,
movie world.
I did kind of think about Spider-Verse when I thought of the art style, because it's a good movie and it
I
does
know. I'm just
combine
saying,
it.
like everyone uses that example, and it is the breakthrough. But we're going OG. We're going Peanuts movie.
I mean, after post movie like that, or even like
Post Peanuts movie,
or even like what's the Kid Cudi movie?
Intergalactic.
Like that, things like that. In that sort of reimagining era, post that, you just got to do more for me with the animation. Like I just expect more out of
This
it.
one, and it's not a comment on
It's
the
not
work.
bad,
or the
but it's just not
the decisions.
diverse.
The decisions for the character designs just on the whole just don't feel super unique. It feels like something DreamWorks has made or something Pixar has made. Like it kind of has that Inside Out vibe.
I guess so, but I still liked it.
I
think
like
it was
it still.
like, because I like how Sleep is kind of like a Muppet a little bit, and like she really looks like a Muppet to me. I don't know, but I like the painted backgrounds, and I like the sometimes use of 2D, like when Dark was explaining the plan to Orion on the wall. That was really cool. I like the element of 2D. Maybe it's just because I miss 2D animation.
I do too,
and
I know you do.
In a lot of these movies, especially in Disney movies, but it's just so I'm happy whenever I see it.
I'm going to be incredibly sad if anime as a style ever transitions to completely like 3D animated.
Yeah, I don't think it will.
I don't think so either.
What?
I think it's got too much of a lineage behind it. That's beside the point. I think for my own, and loosely, we talked about this a little bit before. I kind of saw this as like a spiritual sort of answer to Luca, in a manner.
Very loosely, you said.
Yeah, very loosely. Oh, that's also what I was going to say. So the mouse. Let's talk about how closed captions kind of spoil movies for us.
Yep.
I need closed captions, otherwise I feel like I can't understand things.
So-
but yes,
But that was a recent
I know
thing.
where you're going with this,
That was
I
a recent thing on the internet about like, well, Gen X and Boomers realizing how many Millennials and Gen Z put subtitles on everything, and they can't believe it. It's like, what's wrong with subtitles? Like, you saw that phenomenon going around, right?
I mean, I use subtitles all the time. My
Me too.
family has whenever we watch movies all the time, so I didn't realize it wasn't a thing.
I mean, this
until
is
people comment on it.
This is the site. I don't want to say spoiled for me. I just kind of took away from the effect. I think when the mouse is chittering,
Yeah.
it says what the mouse is saying.
Yep.
And I don't think you would have understood that had the
Nope.
subtitles been
That's the-
off.
But it's kind of fun too, because then you're like, oh, that's fun, and you can kind of hear it too, like when you see the subtitles, like and when they do that, you're like, oh, they are actually saying something, you know.
I was gonna say, you want to know subtitles spoiling
Attack on
Attack
Titan.
on Titan without details.
One of the
They
names
will
of the
give-
characters
they
gets
will-
revealed before they reveal it in
A couple
the show.
times it happens.
Yeah.
Where a character's name will appear over their dialogue, but you've not met the character, or you don't know the character's name, and the second I saw it, I go, oh, so that's who that is. Like, and then like 2 episodes later, they answer that. It's like, yeah, I already knew that. Because the subtitles spoiled it.
And
So
it
it can
doesn't
happen.
ruin the show at all.
No, not at all. It was just fun. It was actually kind of fun. It's like, hey, okay, that makes sense. But regardless. Yeah, it took me till, I think the scene in Orion in the Dark where when he's talking about when he's trying to make the speech of how great night is after he's convinced them that day is better. And that's where
the YouTube apology.
Yep, and and that's when Sleep is saying, you can barely hear the voice like yelling.
Oh, quiet, you mean?
Yeah, or quiet, not sleep, quiet. And that was the moment where like, oh, the mouse is actually saying something. I didn't. I just heard the squeaks before, but now because of the subtitle. Oh, okay. I thought the subtitles were telling me what the mouse was saying, like what's it called? Interpreting. No, there's actual talking.
That was actually cleverly animated how they did that specific power, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think there's little clever things in all of them. I like for Insomnia, I like the fact that he has like the digital clock numbers in his eyes, like whenever like he's like not talking or whatever. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's fun stuff in it.
Who voiced Dream?
Oh, that was Angela Bassett.
Sweet Dream.
Okay.
Sweet Dreams.
That's
Angela Bassett.
Angela Bassett is the lady in Black Panther.
You can be more specific than that. She's
the queen.
Oh, the lady in Black Panther.
So
which one?
There's a lot of ladies there. But I will say, so that's Angela Bassett. Insomnia. Well, I only connected it back to things that I've watched. The guy who voiced Insomnia was the Swede in Our Flag Means Death. Unexplained Noises voice actor is the same actress who does Queen Charlotte in Bridgerton.
I did like Unexplained Noises.
Kind of, yeah. Another one that kind of looked a little bit like a Muppet to me. Unexplained Noises. Quiet was also played Hollyhock in BoJack.
That's right. Yep.
And then Sleep plays Nadia in What We Do in the Shadows.
A couple of those shows, like Bridgerton and what was it? Our Flag Means Death. I've never seen, so it's like okay.
I know.
So they're
those
in
are
things.
Yes, they are in things.
Which Angela Bassett is also in BoJack.
Oh, she is.
She's on a Spanakopita, whatever.
Oh,
it's been a while.
yeah.
Spanakopita. The PR person.
And it's interesting that you've talked about how this is spiritual successor to Luca, considering that the voice actor for Orion is the voice of Luca.
Yep.
There you go. My brain draws some parallels.
I just realized it. Yeah, that's right, Jacob Tremblay.
And even and I know you've talked a little bit about how you connect this to Pixar and Inside Out, and the guy who voices
like a Pixar thing, yeah.
The guy who voices Dark is gonna be Embarrassment in Inside Out too. So.
Yep. Grand Rapids native Paul Walter Hauser.
Oh, didn't even know
that. You've seen him in a movie. No, you haven't. You didn't watch it for that episode. Richard Jewell. He's Richard Jewell. He's also been in I, Tonya.
That's the one
Cruella.
Where they try to...
Which one?
Sound like an idiot. Is Richard Jewell the one where the FBI tries to gaslight this dude into believing that he bombed?
They're not they're trying to pin it on him.
Which show is this from? Sorry.
The movie Richard Jewell is about the '96 Olympic bombing, and Richard Jewell saved a bunch of people.
Okay.
But then the FBI thought he I can't remember the term they used. They thought he did it to make himself look like a hero.
Oh.
But he didn't do it. He did save a bunch of people.
Do you know what else Jacob Tremblay is in?
Room.
Yes.
Wonder. Good Boys.
I've actually seen Wonder. That's a good movie.
Is that where he wears the helmet?
Yeah.
Am I missing anything?
He's in Harley Quinn. He's Robin in Harley Quinn.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, Little Mermaid. He's Flounder.
Yes, that's right.
Let me guess. It's going to be like Dr. Sleeper.
No, there's a big one that I would be surprised if you couldn't think of.
My Father's Dragon?
Yeah. I guess big one is relative in there, but I would expect you to know that.
Yeah. He's had a very successful career. He's in like the 8th or 9th year of being a mainstream star of sorts, child actor, so.
You mentioned this briefly, but you can kind of see hints at the time periods that they're in. I checked the time machine at the end of the movie, and the original date, it looks like it's May 13th of 1995.
Okay.
So I thought it was 80s or 90s, so it's I guess supposed to be the 90s, because I remember seeing like the fun patterns, and a lot of the girls wore scrunchies and overalls and stuff like that.
So
and then the framing device is in like present day,
and the second date that shows up, I saw it looked like it was September 10th of 2023.
Okay, so almost present day.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And
probably.
then the future
is basically my age.
No.
Orion would be, maybe.
Okay.
Orion would be.
Present day is when he's telling the story to Hypatia.
Yeah, Hypatia's a child. And
Yeah, I thought you said that present day was 1995.
No, the bulk of the story is 1995, where Orion is a kid. Yep.
Yes.
And then the future one is...
The future, yeah, because you can tell, like, some of the things when Hypatia's older, like, there's some of the things that, like, look more futuristic in some of the details.
The time machine being one of them?
Oh, yeah. That was in the story, though, not in, like, the...
no, it was real.
Yeah, it was real.
Uh-huh.
Just like that elf was real.
Yes.
Yeah. I totally know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, I'll speak a bit on Charlie Kaufman. So, Charlie Kaufman has never been one to do normal stuff when it comes to his work. He's always about adding layers and putting things out of order and doing things with time. Now, in this one, that is what he has multiple times being shown, and the time machine shows up at the end, but there's a way he uses time in a lot of his projects that just is... It's really interesting. My favorite example is his first directed movie that he also wrote is called Synecdoche, New York, with Philip Seymour Hoffman. Mm-hmm. There is a breakdown I've seen online by a YouTuber I don't like anymore. That where it's a good breakdown. There is a scene where Philip Seymour Hoffman wakes up and goes out to his wife and daughter having breakfast. And the way it's edited, there are clues in every shot that shows you time passing. So what seems like a normal morning breakfast is actually like 6 months pass by. But it's supposed to show how nothing changes. They're wearing the same clothes, doing the same thing. But it's like in this shot, the radio's saying something about like daylight savings, and then the next shot, the newspaper says like June, like shot to or something like that. Like shot to shot, the time has moved forward, and then like that movie spans multiple years as well. Like all of a sudden, it's like because he's working on a play. This big play, and they're like, we've been working on this for 17 years. Are we ever going to have an audience? Like that movie's all about how time just kind of passes quick and how's it end and existential stuff like normal.
You want to talk about the existential crisis of nothing ever changes. How many times have you worn that Chiefs shirt?
Shut up.
On this podcast.
A lot. Back-to-back champs, baby.
Can go for a three-peat.
Anyway, and then you got he didn't direct but wrote Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. That takes place over the course of like mostly like one night, but it's covering an entire relationship within the construct of that because have you ever seen it?
No.
And you've not seen it.
Synecdoche, New York?
Eternal Sunshine.
No.
Because it's about it's Jim Carrey getting his mind erased of Kate Winslet, who was his girlfriend. There's a place you can go to have people erased from your memory. So it's him going backwards through a relationship.
So not lobotomized like in Sucker Punch.
No. It's almost reminds you of 5 Years Later. Is that what it's called?
5 years later.
Isn't that? Or the last 5 years. That's what it is. The last 5 years. Which is a musical. Engagement? Have you heard of that?
No.
It's a musical. And when I first watched it with my mom, we didn't know what was going on. We were very confused. But apparently, there's like a couple, and like it ends with them like breaking up or getting divorced. And so I forget one. One goes, I think the guy is going from there backwards, and then the girl is going from the beginning forwards, or vice versa.
So they meet. So
and then so like one of them, like the first scene shows like the perspective of them like right before they break up, and then one of them shows like right when they meet, and then the middle of the movie where they intersect is the engagement.
So it's like non-sequential Memento.
It's kind of like season 4 of Lost,
or that movie that we made. Yeah. We thought we were the first to do it.
No, I knew we were. I literally said it was like Lost season 4. I was like, I'm just gonna do a Lost season 4. But back to Eternal Sunshine, that's kind of like how he uses time in that, because we're covering a whole relationship just in this one night in his mind, where it's like she's being erased, and you go back to the inception of it, and like that's how the story unravels, and then of course his Netflix movie from 2020, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, also does similar things with time, where what should be a pretty straightforward story gets really wonky with its timeline, like it stops making sense.
Did that get nominated for something?
Nothing. That's
Should
the
it
best.
have?
Probably. It wasn't going to. It's one of those. It was the best movie I've seen from the year 2020, but it is not an awards movie. It's just not that thing. It's too weird to get nominated, or at least at the time.
I feel like Netflix movies in general have trouble getting nominated for things.
No, they've had The Irishman, Buster Scruggs, Roma. They have some animated stuff get nominated.
Roma, Netflix thing.
Mm-hmm. Went straight, made for Netflix straight.
Did Nimona get nominated?
Yep, Nimona got nominated. Seabees.
And yet Barbie did not get.
Seabees. I would have been okay.
Barbie did not get nominated for what?
Didn't get nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, it did.
It did?
Yeah.
Oh.
It didn't get a Best Director, or Best Actress.
Yeah, that's what.
It didn't get. It should. It's a stack. Okay, now to go on this tangent, I would not have nominated Greta Gerwig for director because it is a stacked category. It's just, it's one of those like, if she's in there, I'm fine with that. If she's not, I'm fine with it. There's just so many. Actress though, Margot Robbie not getting nominated over like Carey Mulligan for Maestro or Annette Bening for Naiad, like
she was amazing.
That's a whole nother tangent though.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them makes sense. The other one is like, what? Okay.
I remember when Greenberg came out, and a good friend of the podcast, Drew, said, "Jake, you watch this Greta Gerwig girl. She's gonna be something." And I thought, I will probably never hear that name again.
Now look.
Now look at you.
Yeah, because
was that like 2007?
Somewhere in there, because the director's Noah Baumbach, who is they're a thing.
A thing.
She's also been nominated for more Oscars than him, after only directing like 3 movies.
Is Noah Baumbach the one that did the Squid versus the Whale? Is that him?
The Squid versus, that would have been an interesting. The Squid and the Whale.
Squid and the Whale.
Where Jeff Daniels and Anna Paquin hook up in a scene. You're like, this is weird. They were father and daughter 10 years ago in a movie.
Anyways.
What in that library scene? Sorry.
Orion in the dark.
Orion
I was
in the
talking
dark.
I was talking coughing. Just he and a lot of his movies have like characters who are going through existential crises and whatnot. You have Adaptation that he wrote. That was directed by Spike Jonze, where Nick Cage's main character just has all kinds of problems, which
is just Nick Cage in
I was
the
gonna
movie.
say like,
but he's not like crazy Nick Cage. It's actually a very good performance. He got nominated for that, and to put here, this is actually a perfect example. So what could have been a straightforward adaptation of The Orchid Thief because that's what Charlie Kaufman was working on, was adapting The Orchid Thief into a movie. He then, because he could not get it off the ground, he had writer's block, so he inserted himself into the movie. It became a movie about him adapting The Orchid Thief. He put himself into the movie as a character, and then put his brother, who is not real, into the movie, like a twin brother. So Nick Cage plays both of them. And he credits his brother for writing the screenplay with him. So for the first time in Academy Awards history, a fictional character got nominated for an Oscar. But like that's what that movie, instead of straightforward, it's about him adapting the book, and it's all fictional. Excuse me. And then like Being John Malkovich is another thing that he's written, and that's pretty bonkers. Have you ever either of you seen Adaptation or Being John Malkovich?
I think I own Adaptation.
I mean, I've seen when I was researching Charlie Kaufman. The video I watched showed clips of those movies that you mentioned, and so I can kind of like I will understand a little bit of what's going on with them, but I haven't seen them. No.
Yeah, being John Malkovich is literally John Cusack finds a portal that puts you into John Malkovich's head for, I don't remember, it's like 20 minutes, and like you're watching everything through his eyes. Then it spits you out in the New Jersey Turnpike or whatever. It's been a long time, but he's been known to have these out there concepts, and he's a very good writer. And he also wrote and co-directed Anomalisa, a stop motion movie that was nominated up against Inside Out, and it's way better, but it had no chance of winning. That's why I had beef with Inside Out when it came out, because it's like, this is a good movie, but it's going to beat something way better. But that was college me not realizing, you think this weird indie movie is going to beat the Pixar machine.
This piece of art is not going to beat this traced over Denny's placemat.
Listen, I know, I understand the frustration.
Don't hit the nerve. She loves Inside Out.
It's a very personal movie for me, so I have a very special place in my heart for it. As somebody who moved at around that age, it's a very special movie to me. So I understand the frustration, but
that was a past
good.
frustration. I don't care now. I'm just like, oh yeah, they picked the wrong movie. They were going to. That's how the Disney Pixar machine works.
The Academy always picks wrong movies every year.
That's true.
Yeah, it's just, and at the end of the day, Anomalisa is still a good movie, a great movie. And that one doesn't work with time as much. That's like that's a one night thing. There is a couple trippy moments, and there's plenty of Kaufmanisms and characters with existential problems. Like that's just a thing throughout all of his works. So to see this movie, Orion in the Dark, and it's a lot more positive, and it's a kids' movie.
Yeah.
So they're going to push for that, but to see him make something that's a lot more positive and happy, by the end it was like, I'm for it. He said the last couple movies have been sad, and this one has sad moments, but I'm for it. Just it's nice to see him be at least in his movie self be happy.
Kaufman was going through a time.
He's always been going through a time. It seems
Literally
like
and
the way he writes about stuff. It's like, man, this guy is so good at his craft.
Can someone
hug
him, please?
I know. It's like I don't know if I'd want to be in his shoes. I don't know what I don't know him. I don't know what he's gone through or going through, but it's like, you put a lot of people put all they have into their art, so I can only imagine that a lot of the stuff he writes is the things he feels and thinks.
Can you imagine? So Netflix has a deal with Criterion, and they have recently started releasing more animated stuff.
The one thing.
WALL-E.
Oh, and then Pinocchio.
Yeah.
So 2.
So, can you imagine?
This got a Criterion. Orion in the Dark Criterion. Let's go.
And Klaus still doesn't.
Yeah, have a physical release period.
Yeah.
Physical media, everyone is way better than streaming.
Oh, physical media is making a comeback. Yeah. Best Buy's going to rue the day that they took it off their shelves. Maybe not.
No, but... Well, and then you hear Carrie Coon on... is that Fallon or Kimmel? One of the late night shows said she has a collection of like 10,000 Blu-rays or whatever. It's like...
That's what Jared aspires to.
I'm waiting for someone to say, why don't you have that many? I go... Because I'm not in my 40s or 50s and rich.
Why don't you have that many? Because I have half that many.
I don't have half that many.
You have very nearly half that many.
Nah, I got a ways to go. I got a couple thousand to get to half.
I thought you were at 4,000.
I'm at like 2,800.
Oh, why did I? Oh, I bet you it's movies you watched.
Yeah. But the other point being, I'm like half her age, Carrie Coon, I'm half her age, and I have not made anywhere near as much money as she has. Not that she's making the giant bucks, but in her profession, she's made way more than I've made. Of course, she has a bigger collection, and good for her. Like, I wish she had a picture.
She doesn't have as many laser discs.
I don't know. She might.
Anyways.
Sorry.
I was going to say that from what I've learned about Charlie Kaufman, the little that I know, but it's a lot of it, from the YouTube video I watched from the Cinema Cartography, they said that it's about how it's not so much there's a structure to the story, but the story is the structure, and that it's more about the emotions of things, not necessarily logical. It's about kind of conversation with the audience, about feeling alone and not being understood, accepting what you cannot know, exposing what makes us inadequate, and living with honesty. I think that very much applies to what we see here as well. Especially we see quiet, not being understood, dark, feeling alone, Orion exposing what makes him feeling inadequate and everything like that. And I think that's a good, I like that as a general thing in a kids movie, because a lot of times we don't always get to see those kinds of things. We get to see, because we get to see Orion or Dark feeling inadequate, we get to see the growth that comes through that, I guess.
Yeah, that is good. The what is it? There is no structure. The story. What is it?
I think it's the story is the structure.
The story is the structure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did laugh pretty hard at that turtle joke. Why are we sitting on this thing? Oh, I don't think it's alive.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna sit here. I don't know what this is. So it's probably not alive. He's like, oh, guess I was wrong.
I like how the dark character was not annoying either, because
Yeah.
how many movies? This is a very loud, fast-talking, high-pitched.
I was gonna say
type
it
character.
almost feels like
That would've been
genie-esque to a certain
weird.
extent,
Yeah.
but also its own thing, to a certain extent.
The performance from Paul Walter-Hauser is very warm, and I appreciate that. It's like, okay, there are when he has different emotions, he's not just loud and obnoxious. Because I never found him obnoxious, but like it's not the one thing. It's when he's upset, he's upset. When he's more frustrated or angry, he's frustrated or angry. When he's sad, he's sad. Like I like how there are differences, and then when he comes back, he's genuinely happy to see everyone. And I got a little when Orion ran over and hugged him, because I even said like,
Yeah.
"Go hug him! Don't go in the house. Go hug him!" And he did. And I said, "Good."
Yeah, I think they did very well making sure he was like kind of over the top a little bit, but like also not annoying, and you got to see like how he was like redeemable, or how he's like very like genuine and caring. Whereas sometimes with certain characters, they can be written to the point where they're just annoying and they're just getting in people's way, and it seems like they're being disregarding of other people's feelings. And I didn't get that sense here. I feel like he was a genuine person
And an aspiring filmmaker.
and it's by
That made me laugh.
narrated by Werner Herzog.
Werner Herzog. The dark.
It's a boys' club, apparently.
and it's like, well, now I even know this is made for me because they insert a Saul Bass joke. Do you know who Saul Bass is? No? He did title sequences back in the old like 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, like in that era. He did a lot of like Hitchcock openings, like the opening credits where they have like animations and silhouette stuff. That's all Saul Bass. So again, specifically for weirdos like me that know who Saul Bass was. So that when I saw that, because it said like directed by Dark, narrated by Werner Herzog, and titles by Saul Bass, I go, that's funny. And that's right after they made an Infinite Jest joke. I go, I'm laughing. No one else is laughing.
I was gonna say I had to look up who David Foster Wallace was, and I learned about a little bit
Bandana,
about.
right?
No,
All the
I mean,
pictures with the bandana.
I don't know about that, but I did look up what Infinite Jest was and how like a lot of sometimes film bros, if you will,
Yep.
like that.
Just massive, but you've heard of Infinite Jest, right? It's just massive. I think it's a sci-fi book. David Foster. You've heard of David Foster Wallace, though. And so he's like, "How about a bedtime story?" And I'm thinking, like, watch, they make like a War and Peace joke, 'cause that's a big book. And he picks the book up, and I see the little gesture thing. I go, is that? And like, and his parents like, I don't think we're gonna read David Foster Wallace. And I laughed really hard. I go, okay, it's Infinite Jest. That's good. I think this movie's made for me. So that got me good, and like that, and the Saul Bass thing, and then the main character is like, yeah, this is kind of tailored for me, in a way. Why don't I like this better? But
It's because you're looking in a mirror.
I will say there's other little
Way
references
better.
that I caught. Like it's probably one of the big ones is the gutter murder clowns being a reference to it, and
yep.
and even when he talks about the evil cucumber, I just thought of Little Shop of Horrors with the evil dentist.
Be a dentist.
Yeah, and then so we talked about the connection, how it reminds us of like Luca or Inside Out. I kind of got a little bit of a Rise of the Guardians vibe a little bit.
I was getting that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good.
That's fair.
Because
I mean, both no, that's Sandy. I thought his name was Sleep in Rise of the Guardians. It's Sandy.
it was like, yeah, it was Sandman. You have one that's like
Sandy.
they have one with a Russian accent. You have one.
Russian. That was Santa.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying because there's both has a
Or not
Russian,
Santa. What did they call him in the movie?
the North.
North. Thank you.
So there's one with a Russian accent. There's one that deals with sleep, and there's also one that deals
Yep.
with dreams. And
But no Easter Bunny.
no, but
Sorry.
I forget what the other
What would they
connections-
call him again?
I forget. I haven't seen that movie in
It's like
ages.
Hop.
Is it just?
Now I'm just
I
thinking
know.
of the movie, the terrible movie with what's his
What terrible movie?
the movie called Hop.
Oh, That's right. Oh, man.
Anyways, so yeah, there's lots of little fun things in there that I saw. It's a very subtle detail, but I like that the quilt that he has in the beginning is, I think they use the quilt again when that's when we first see Hypatia in her room, like when she's in her little teepee and she has the same quilt. I kind of like some of those little details as I was watching it again. There's also a reference to the original artist, or not artist, the original author of the original book, Orion in the Dark. If you notice the book that Orion reads at the end, the author is Emma Yarlett.
Okay. That's cool. Mm-hmm. Do we have any other thoughts before we throw it on the ranking list?
Oh, yeah, I forgot we got to do that.
Yeah, it's not up there. I'll turn my screen for you to see it, Lita. We have
That's
it.
right. It's not up there.
So, we're going to rank this real quick. So, we're going to start at the B-line. If you watched our ranking video or know what we'll hear us talk about, the B-line is B-movie. Which I think it's above the B-line.
I agree.
Hold on, let me pull up the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I was going to say, you might want to go to the spreadsheet. You can see this, right?
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah, so that's the B line. It's 26th right now out of 45, so it's actually like almost in the middle. So we gotta figure out where we're going. So we both think it's above the B line. We'll wait for Jake to get there.
Okay, yeah, I think it's above the B line.
I think it's better than the fourth Shrek.
Yep.
I think it's better than Peabody and Sherman.
Yeah.
I think it's better than Madagascar.
Are you gonna stop it Over the Hedge?
I love Over the Hedge too. I also
it's one of those like.
It's one.
Over the Hedge is the more consistent story, but it's also less unique and doesn't aim higher.
That's
but
true.
Here is my take on that. I would probably put it over the Hedge for personal enjoyment. I would stop at Puss in Boots. I don't think it's better than
Puss in Boots. I don't think it's better than The Last Wish.
Okay, wow. I guess I'm just thinking about The Last Wish is that low on your list, that it's below Sinbad.
Sinbad is great.
He's good. Upset that Sinbad is that low.
It is too low.
It's good, but I don't
It's better than The Last Wish.
I don't think it's better than The Last Wish.
I think it's better.
I just don't. The problem is I would rank things differently. I mean, as far as some of these other ones. Like, I think they were pushing, and I didn't budge. Madagascar. In my opinion.
Yeah, I'm mad that Escape to Africa is above Sinbad. They don't care, but I cared.
The fact that Madagascar 2, I guess. I don't know. I would argue it's at least better. I mean, it's better than some of the other ones that you have mentioned. I just my ranking list would look very different.
And that's the thing. My personal ranking list is way different than our ranking.
Yeah, I was
list.
going to say the only reason this looks so messed up is because it was me and Dickie and Jared trying to agree.
Yep.
I think. See, that's the problem. I love Over the Hedge so much. I think I'm more with Jared on this. It's hard for me to put this movie above Over the Hedge. Because I feel like I would want to watch Over the Hedge again as opposed to this movie again. Yeah.
Over the Hedge is almost 20 years old, and we've seen it multiple times and have a child connection, whereas Orion in the Dark is 1 month old, and we're adults.
Yes.
So there's the differences. And then, you never know, but I think I'd put it 23rd, which is under
right
Over the Hedge.
Yeah. That's fair.
It's fair.
I don't have any argument. I don't even remember Over the Hedge that much.
Which I remember it very well because of watching it over and over and over.
So many times. I could quote many, many parts of this movie.
All right. So we've got our new spot, Orion in the Dark, going at number 23 in our DreamWorks rankings. I'd say that's a pretty good spot in the middle of the pack. Nothing super special, but enjoyable enough. Lots of good stuff in it. Maybe a rewatch one day will change for the better.
Mm-hmm. On the Criterion release.
On the Criterion release, 4K Criterion. Let's go. All right. Any other final thoughts on Orion in the Dark before we skedaddle?
I much prefer something like this as to another sequel of some things. Like I just recently
or Ruby
watched,
Gilman. or Trolls.
Yeah, I mean, I just watched Kung Fu Panda 4 this past weekend, and it was just very disappointing. I prefer, for me at least, I guess.
That's a different video.
That's a different video. Well, I'm sure you guys will get to that, but I will say I like the creativity in this. I like the uniqueness of it, and I think in general I like it as a movie, and I'm happy with it.
All right, Jake, anything? Kind of already said your piece.
Yes, I mean, like you said, for me, it's kind of forgettable. Like,
yeah, but
the problem is not, I think, the story itself. The problem is just that this genre of animation is just, I'm getting so fatigued with it because there's so much of it.
Yeah,
and it's just they all seem to follow the same scene.
We need to get some more 2D back in the mainstream.
Which is funny because a lot of all of the animated movies for the Oscars this year were a lot of 2D animation. It was mixed with all of it, but
there were 2D.
Completely 2D. There's
and
2D. There's 2D in Spider-Verse. There was layers of 2D in Nimona.
That's true.
Yeah, like, there's
There's
the three that weren't 2D were stylized with.
It was not just this.
It's a good group. I have yet to see Robot Dreams of the 5 because it's not available anywhere yet as of recording this, but it looks good. I'm excited to see it.
I am excited. Well, we'll talk about that in another week.
Yeah. Anyway, Alita, you want to read our socials here?
Sure.
So one of them. So it says Twitter. That's not Twitter anymore. And then down low, one of those. There's one crossed out. Stitcher doesn't exist anymore, so don't read that.
Okay.
Okay. So.
Well, if you would like to find this podcast, you can look anywhere where pods are cast, including you can look on
How
Apple,
come you never
Spotify,
thought of that?
Google, or YouTube. If you want to check out our socials, you can check out Facebook, X, also formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok.
Funny. It's funny.
It's the funny TikTok.
TikTok. So hopefully you can catch it before it gets banned.
Oh, that's right.
But yeah.
Thank you. Thus ends another installment of That Works, a DreamWorks podcast. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Oh, have fun listening to
I
that.
know someone outside's like, what is going on?
You just like to have a bunch of cuts of us yelling.
It's funny. Jake. I do one more. If you mess with this one, whatever. But you're just like,
I started screaming after you, so I heard you.
You know the rules. He can't look at me or listen to me during these because he will just laugh. I knew I'd get it.
You did it again.
That's good. You actually, I was good.
The first one was good. Why did you go so high for that one?
To make you laugh.